All right. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for an interview. Could you please introduce yourself?
For sure. Thank you for having me. First of all, my name is Mahmood Bany al. I go by Benny for short because Mahmoud is a hard Arabic name to pronounce. The part is what gets hard in it. But yeah, feel free to call me Benny. I'm from Syria. Currently studying criminal justice and criminology at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So I recently just got my bachelor's. I'll be continuing my master's to it's also going to be in the criminal justice and criminology field. So hopefully the plan is to work with the law enforcement, eventually. So that's pretty much all I have for you right now. So.
Well, I wish you the best on that. You mentioned you were from Syria. I'd like to ask you, how was life like growing up there, and what kind of experiences did you have before, obviously, the war broke out?
For sure. Honestly, it was different. That's I think it's a powerful word to use. It's the word different. But what I mean by it is, in Syria, first of all, Syria is an Islamic country, right? So when you compare Syria and the United States, you think, first of all, in school, right? You're not really close to, for an example, when you're in a class, right? You're not in the same class with girls and boys, but they actually separate you from a young age, so you can get used to that habit of actually being away from girls, and just because it's an Islamic country, there's a lot of Islamic rules where you're just not supposed to be close. But other than that, honestly, Syria was a great country to live in. I mean, I've grown up there speaking Arabic. It was a very simple life. We've had a house. I went to school there. Food was cheap. A lot of great, opportunities there, whether it's work, whether if it's for, school, to get a job or whatnot. But honestly, it's starting to get difficult back in 2010. That's when the war got in between us. So when the war started back in 2010, that's when I was about 9 years old. So yeah, at the age of 9, we realized that a lot of people didn't want the president to be a president anymore. And frankly, the reason for that was because he was, just not good with his people. He started doing some unfortunate things that were pretty much disappointing the citizens of Syria. With that being said, in 2011, the president started using a lot of power to get rid of those that are against him. And the unfortunate part was the fact is that we lived in the countryside of Syria. And the countryside of Syria is the side where pretty much a lot of protests was taking place in. So with that being said, we were pretty much aimed for, me and my family and everyone that lived in the countryside of Syria, because in the countryside there was a lot of protests, a lot of people that wanted the president out ASAP. But of course that didn't happen, and we had to move out of the countryside and move to the capital side instead. The capital side, which is Damascus, it's a safer place to live in, because a lot of the people there are not against the president. And, therefore it's not being aimed for. So, yeah, we started building a house in Damascus back in 2011. We finally moved in it in 2012 because it started to get real. I mean, I'm talking about the war was literally outside my house in the countryside. And then, a lot of fighting, a lot of, the window got broken. And then, we've known eventually that the house was going to go down. And, after a year when we moved, we heard news that the whole building went down, and we seen it coming. So just think about those that couldn't afford leaving the country, or leaving that side of Syria. Just think about those that actually couldn't make it out and how they had to deal with going down with the war. So may they rest in peace. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is our God. May He be with those who are weak. May He take the president out of Syria, because he is not fit to be a president. But besides that, Syria is a great country. I've enjoyed living there for the 10 years I spent there. I appreciate the fact that I was welcome there with all the people, and that's just pretty much what I have for you from Syria. But I'm happy I'm here now in the United States, and I can't say otherwise. So
you talked about Syria there and the issues that are occurring. How do you feel that it's not really something talked about in the world today, and it's more on the back end of what is talked about?
For sure. Honestly, it's not just Syria, but I feel like there's quite a few different countries, like Palestine, for an example, that are just not being talked about. And I feel like the reason for that is because us Arabs or Muslims are pretty much known as and this is the unfortunate reality, right? You'd hear a Muslim, then the first thing you think of, if you're not Arabic, that maybe terrorism comes in the process. And I feel like that's something that plays a big role on why we're not being talked about. Syria is a good country, and I feel like all those Middle Eastern countries are. But I feel like those people that give you the wrong picture we shouldn't be pretty much influenced by them, right? We shouldn't be judged just because someone else did a mistake on our end. For an example, Palestine right now, they're going through the war, and they're having a lot of struggles. In Syria right now, they're going through the war. But what you should know is the president. Why the question that should be asked is, why is he still standing? And that's when the part comes in, right? Because of course he's giving everything that Syria has to those countries that are supporting him. He's selling his own country to buy power from other countries that are above him. So this is why we had to leave Syria, because it just over the years it's not right anymore. We've lived there for the longest, and the war started coming in, and we were kicked out of the country. Not to mention those that were killed inside of their own country, and it's still happening. And statistically speaking, here 50% of the citizens in Syria are either dead or pretty much are refugees in other countries that are literally just living in a different country, not having a single penny to live with. So that's the unfortunate reality again that I'm mentioning to you. So it's really sad, but I have a dream that one day hopefully we'll go back to normal. I know there's a lot of construction that needs to be done. Syria is almost like it's not Syria anymore. A lot of the buildings I've known, including the school, including my house in the countryside that I mentioned to you, they're all just like dust on the floor. And that's the sad reality that we live in now. But I feel like we should really, and part of the reason why I love being here today is because you guys are actually doing a great job by sharing those stories, by actually awakening the world, because a lot of people wouldn't know that this is happening, and part of the reason for that is because the media do cover all of these things up, and that's the unfortunate true news. You know what I mean? So again, I just hope that we can continue doing this beautiful work and try to spread the awareness more so people can know what's happening in this world. So
yeah, we hope to do that. That's one of our main goals, and I really appreciate you telling us all about that. You elaborated on how about 50% of Syrians are either dead or refugees left the country. So I want to ask you about how you came to the USA, and how was that journey?
For sure. So luckily, in USA, I had a lot of my father's side that lived here. So for an example, his father, his sisters, a lot of his family were just originally living here because I guess they found great opportunities back when we were in Syria. So they found that America was a great place to be in, and that was way before the war in Syria. I'm talking that's probably back in the 90s. So yeah, they welcomed us. Luckily that I was a citizen originally here at the age of 5 months old. That's when I pretty much went to Syria, and I'm the only one in my family who was actually born here in America. But my mom, my father, my siblings, they're all born in Syria, but they already are citizens because they've went through the whole process of being a citizen, and that took them about 10 years. But yeah, they're all our original citizens, and I'm the only one that was born here. So for me, in my case, it was really easy for me to come to the United States. But in my family's case, it was difficult at first because the war started and they weren't citizens yet. The paper process and all those things still needed a lot of work to do. So luckily, finally, I think Obama was the president during the time. I believe he came out with a rule where he allowed all Americans that lived in Syria to pretty much have the opportunity to travel for free, including myself. So that really helped. But on the other hand, my family weren't citizens, so we had to wait for their papers. So that, I think back in 2012, that's when they finally became citizens, and that's when we were able to, luckily get to the United States. But yeah, that's pretty much the only hard process. Besides that, it was easy to come here because my dad had his siblings that welcomed him in the house. We lost everything in Syria. So with that being said, we had to live in my uncle's house for about 9 months. And those 9 months, we had to work hard. We had to get back on our feet. And that pretty much included, my dad working overtime. It included, my mom also having a job. It included all of us just to work hard to get back what we lost because we were living like a beautiful life in Syria. My dad was a big businessman, and we never thought that one day we'd have to go through that. So yeah, I am very thankful for my uncle and for everyone that has actually helped me and my family to find a home here when we first came to the United States back in 2013. So yeah, I think besides that, we've after 9 months of spending it at my uncle's house, we went and bought a house really close to him, a very cheap house. It was in a great area, and now we're settled. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the United States and all the easy opportunities that are here for us. So.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you finally settled in and your family are living a good life now. A question I'd like to ask is, you talked about the adversity obviously you guys faced. I'd like to ask you personally, what was the adversity you faced? Obviously, coming, not being able to speak the language. How was it adjusting to school? How was it with meeting new friends? Obviously, I'm sure some people look down upon you being an Arab and stuff like that. How was that struggle?
Absolutely. Well, actually, that's a very good question because, if you remember in the first question you asked me about how is it, living in Syria and what's different. I feel like, man, in Syria, again, when I went to school, I was young and I've never experienced being in the same school or even the same class with my friends, right? I mean, my friends, I mean my female friends. Because here, when I came to United States, I went to high school, and I think by the time we came back in 2013, I was in ninth grade. So in ninth grade, I realized that everything is different. Public schools, you'd go in, you have it's filled with girls and boys, and there's no separation, there's nothing. I mean, it's all just one, right? And that was pretty shocking to me at first because I'm not used to that. In Syria, again, we have rules, and those rules were just not the same here in America. So it was really different. I had to get used to that, and I remember when I first met a lot of my female friends. They'd come and give me a hug, and frankly, that was really weird for me. When they come to get close, I'm like, I don't know how to act because I've never been through that, and I don't know what their intentions were. You know what I mean? And then I realized I find out, and I realized that they have good intentions, and they're just actually my friends, and I just needed to get used to what's happening there. So yeah, man, I feel like going to school here in America was great. I feel like it was much easier than in Syria. One thing in Syria, that I can compare to here, honestly, the truth is, here you can find much easier opportunities to step in college. Much easier, scholarships, for an example, is a great example. You can go to school here, and then when you graduate, in Syria, for an example, let's say you're going to school and you're planning to go to college. First of all, it's almost impossible to get scholarships in Syria back in time. I mean, now I'm quite certain they're trying to develop that and actually going beyond that and trying to help those students that can't afford colleges. But back in my time, I mean, and I'm sounding here like I'm old, but now for real, like back in 2012 or 2011. It was really difficult for all my fellow friends that were older than me to step into college, and that includes my cousins that were older than me. It was just so expensive, and it's almost like you needed the perfect score to step inside of a certain major that you would like to do. It was that hard, seriously, and that's the only thing that I'm thankful for here in the United States is you have a lot of opportunities, a lot of different majors that you can step into and be a part of. And there's a lot of scholarships that are being offered. So that's the only big difference here and there. That I would say, if you give me the option of whether I want to study here or Syria, hands down, I choose the United States because it has much more better opportunities for us. So,
I like how you talked about that, and I hope people will listen to this and learn and see the opportunities they've been blessed with here, and hopefully take advantage of them.
For sure.
You talked about coming to America and how those were things you weren't expecting. I'd like to ask you, before you came to America, what did America mean to you? What did you think of it in Syria? And what does it mean to you? And how do you look at it now that you've lived here for almost a decade?
For sure. Honestly, I've always known that America was my homeland too, because, again, when you think of the fact that you were born here and you have family here from your father's side that you've never seen before, I always had I've always been excited, just thinking about, am I going to go one day to America? And if that day comes, how is it going to be like? Because all I hear is that America is a beautiful country back in Syria, that America is, just totally different. There's much more things here. And that was the truth. America is much different. It's like you'd see so many different things because of the culture here is just not the same in Syria. So that was really exciting for me, when I came here. But again, I have had a lot of friends that taught me a lot of things here in the United States, and honestly, I really appreciated that. I was so happy that I was coming here, and I was excited that America was filled with green. I mean, in Syria, it's almost impossible to see green. There's no grass. There's grass, but it's not the same. It's pretty much like a desert almost. There's a lot of beautiful places you can go to, but it's very small. I feel like compared to here, and you can just see more nature here. So yeah, I feel like I'm at home because America, again, I was born here and I fit in very easily. I feel like I get along with people very well, and I've worked with a lot of my fellow co-workers, and honestly, I've realized how beautiful, the sponsor, it's like when you play sports and you realize that your teammates are your family. It's really the same when you come here to America. When I played soccer in Syria, I've always told myself that those friends are something that I never want to be away from. But here, when I come to America, I had the same feelings when I started working, all those jobs. You know, everyone that I worked with, I started telling myself that, man, these people are amazing. So true, you know, what I'm trying to get to here is I wasn't disappointed by coming here, even though at first I had those thoughts that, wow, I'm really going to leave Syria. I'm really going to leave the country that I've grown up in and learned so many things from. But I realized that, wow, America is actually something beautiful. Taught me a lot of things. It gave me the opportunity of being a graduate student, you know, not having to go through the struggle that I would have went to in Syria. So I am truly appreciative, and I hope to continue, you know, making America proud. So
you talked about obviously you've lived half of your life in Syria and half of your life in the USA. I'd like to ask you, like, obviously you have friends there, friends here, family there, family here. What are the differences in culture between Syria and America, and which do you feel like you identify with more now?
For sure. I feel like, of course, I mean, the cultures are again, they're different in many ways, but I feel like they also relate in many ways. When I came here to America, I didn't realize that there was a big Arabic community, a big Islamic community that honestly is very strong and very peaceful and very beautiful, because they allow you to do so many things with your Muslim brothers and sisters. You know, like the mosque I live next to, which is IGKC, the Islamic Greater of New Kansas City. So I feel like that community has actually showed me how wow, like we are as Muslims, we are really strong together, because they've built a whole community that brought in Muslims that has made it big, that we've always done like beautiful things, you know, like to make it a big and safe community. But the cultures, you know, again, like the school difference, that was one thing. But another thing is the traffic. For an example, the traffic here is much better than the traffic in Syria. That's one thing, right? When you go to Syria, you'd almost want to not drive. You just want to walk to wherever you want to go to, because the traffic is just awful. Because Syria has, that population there is huge. But not to mention also the when you want to like have a job over there, it's like, no, if you work 24 hours, you'd make probably what you would make here working 3 hours. Quite honestly, and that's something I've seen, something my best friends had to go through because of their family who's worked very hard in Syria, but the work was just never paying enough, and that's not their fault. The fault here comes in what was happening in Syria, especially with the war that came in. That even made it worse. You know, now I swear I know people that lives in Syria that are stuck, that couldn't leave Syria, and are actually facing this issue. You know, their father and their mother work, and I'm talking about both parents are working here in the process, right? They're both working, and they work almost maybe like 60 hours a week, and honestly, that's how many hours they need to work to survive. So those 60 hours, even though they're working both, it's still not paying them enough. I mean, they can only pretty much afford the house bills, and they can't do anything fun. They can't travel. They can't go out to have dinner in a restaurant. That would almost cost a whole day working outside. So that's just very different now. That's just very different. When you come here, you'd see how life is truly appreciative. You know, I mean, when you come here, you'd see how, wow, like I should be really more thankful, because in Syria we've never seen that. So that's just the major difference I seen when I came here in the United States. And feel free to ask me anything close to that. I can try to remember what I can tell you. So
I like how you shine light on that. It's very important to sometimes sit back and think about how blessed you are. A question I'd like to ask is, like, obviously you talked about all the cultural aspects in Syria that you've had. What cultural aspects have you still kept with you even though you're living here in America, and what has changed for you? What cultural aspects do you think you've like branched off of and like become maybe more Americanized, you could say?
For sure, that's a good question, honestly, and that's a question I really hope all of my Muslim brothers and sisters can actually benefit from. You know, first of all, the culture, and this is gonna sound maybe a little personal, but in my case, in Syria, you know, again, I've never experienced, in our culture, it's always been different. It's always been like, you go to school, when you see someone besides school, when you go outside in public, you're walking in the street and you see a female walking, you just out of respect, you turn your face to the other side, and those things are just normal things people would think of, right? But honestly, it's really big. When I came here to the United States, I've had a lot of girls approach me, a lot of girls back in high school that wanted to date me and do many things, but you know, I was, you know, and I know it sounds funny, but you know, honestly, this is the truth. The truth is, I'm not used to that, and that's something that I'm proud of bringing with me from Syria, and not just this culture thing, but it's actually a religious thing that I know I know that God wouldn't be happy if I did what I'm doing. So with that being said, that's something that I kept with me back in Syria. I try to reject all of that. I try to stay away from what you call drugs or all those not necessary drinks or whatnot. I try to just continue to look straight, even though I'm here and it's totally different. I still try to keep those original cultural thoughts and traditions we do back in Syria that would keep me going straight and keep me becoming the great man I am. So that's just what I have for you for now.
Yeah, those are some great things, and I'm glad you stayed true to your religion and became a better person because of it.
Absolutely.
My next question is, I know you play soccer or football as it's known around the world. How did soccer help you connect with people when you came from Syria and allow you to make friends and find comfort? Because obviously everybody in the world pretty much plays soccer, and a lot of people are connected through soccer. So I'd like to ask you personally, how did that allow you to connect with people?
Man, I gotta think this is probably my favorite question you've asked me so far. So okay, and it's also related to high school, right? Because that's what I have to mention. So when I was a freshman in high school, I didn't know anyone. I came as a stranger. I've spoken no English. I've known no one, and the fact that I had to go through seeing a complete different ways, a complete different school that does many different things, having girls in the same class and having just so many different things that I've never seen in Syria. It was all just adding up, and my head was about to explode, and I'm like, wow, am I really gonna fit? That was my first question. That was my first struggle. Am I gonna fit here in America in this school? Like, how am I gonna learn the language? But then I realized that, I found out that they had a soccer team. Luckily I was able to try out and make it. When I made it, at first I didn't have any friends and I had to speak English. I had a personal translator that walked with me for 2 years straight in high school until I was able to pick up the language. So she, for an example, every time I go to a class, she's there with me, translating what the teacher is speaking to me or to the whole class. Also, when I get like a packet of homework, she'd come, she'd help me out in school, translate what's happening, and I just go ahead and do it. So back to the soccer point. When she helped me, so the reason why I mentioned her here is because she also helped me to pick up the language skills. And when I started learning English, I finally thought that maybe, okay, now I can go and I can ask to join a team. And luckily I was able to make it. And all those friends that I've met was through soccer. And that's how I became more known in school. When I became when I tried out, I actually turned out to be a great player in that school, and I brought a lot of winning games to our school. So my friends loved me for it, and they at first they didn't like me. They thought that was a stranger. I was just someone from Syria. And then you know how that goes. When you see someone and you just think that, wow, I don't know who he is. He's not from here, so I don't want to be with him, because that's just, I feel like the truth is. That's what the truth is. Everyone, if you see someone out of the state or out of the country, you'd feel like you want to stay away, but that's not healthy. I feel like you should want to meet new people, because meeting someone from a different culture can teach you so many things, and this is the truth. So yeah, with that being said, I've met a lot of friends. I finally became close to people. I was able to surround myself around those friends that spoke the language, the English language. And when I realized that was helping me to pick up my language even faster, I stayed around them for a longer period of time. And that's how I was able to meet all of them. So soccer is something that I'm thankful for, something that I love playing, something that I'm passionate for. It helped me in so many ways to be connected to a lot of the players or a lot of my friends that I met in high school. It helped me to become a great man, to keep me in shape, most importantly. So yeah, and also it kept me from being away from all of those bad things that other students can fall into. You know what I mean? So those programs, those sports, I feel like are truly important to have in school, because people would actually, and students can actually stay away from the drugs and stay away from all those bad things, realizing that they have they're offering the sport that they love to play in high school. So
yeah, we are truly blessed to have soccer and sports, because it plays such a big impact on people's lives. I like how you talked about the situation you had, having to have a personal aide walk around with you. Those are things that people would not know about you. They see you in the street, they would not know that the struggle you had to go through to fit in. And that's like our hope as Diversity for Change KC, an organization. We hope to inform people about people's struggles like that. You talk about your culture and how people didn't want to really identify with you because they thought you were a stranger, but now those are some of your best friends. It just shows if you're willing to embrace other people's cultures, you never know what can happen. Like, we just need, as a society, need to be willing to embrace each other, and we'll grow together.
Definitely.
My next question is, what are your thoughts about how important it is to have people become open-minded about other cultures and how that can be beneficial?
Definitely. I feel like again, I mean, when I met my friends in high school, and I started playing soccer, and they realized that I was a good guy, because at first they had a mindset where I was just that one different guy that doesn't fit in their school. I feel like the fact is that when they accepted me as being one of their friends, they learned so much from me. They learned so much from me, and how my culture do different things that at first they thought might have been funny, but eventually realized that it's actually very, very healthy for them. So, for an example, like staying away from for example, the girls, right? The girls was a big part. I told them that it's not healthy to just walk around from a girl to a girl, and just, I understand sometimes that could be something that interests your just something that interests you in general, something that you'd love to do because you fall in love with someone. That's normal, right? But what I'm talking about here is in high school, I've seen a lot of cases where a lot of the friends I've met, they go from a girl to a girl, and honestly, that just, again, the reason I keep mentioning that is because it was really, really, really strange for me. It was really different. I've never seen such thing in Syria, and that's something that I try to tell my friends, that it's not healthy for you. It's something completely against our religion, Islam. And so yeah, they learned so much from me, and honestly, they loved what they learned. And so what I'm trying to get to here is, when you let someone inside your life, realizing they're from a different culture, you never know what you can learn from that one person. You never know how this one person can actually be the change of your life that you're looking for, right? You never know that what you needed in life right now mostly was that person, right? That changes what you thought about different things. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty much like spreading awareness. I feel like when you do that, you can become a great person. You can allow your brain to even get more bigger, right? You can allow your thoughts to be wider. You can become a greater person, and you can become perhaps a philosopher in the future. So yeah, because allowing these things inside will actually make you a great person. So I feel like don't block those people from your life that just because you feel like are from a whole different country or a whole different religion won't fit. No, trust me. If you let these people inside, I promise you'll learn so much, and you'd be thankful ultimately. So
that is a great message, and that's something we hope a lot of people will take in and hopefully follow what you said. Last question here. What do you think is the main issue with why people cannot embrace other cultures and heritages? And do you think as a result that is why there are so many conflicts in the world today?
Absolutely, man. Just like I said, people here, they have a mindset. And unfortunately, that's the truth. I mean, the world we're living in now, it's become brutal, man. And that's the truth. Again, I've met so many people that just thought that Muslims were those one culture that or one community that just wants to destroy everything, that are terrorists, and they never knew what Islam is all about. They'd see again one case that happened, and then they judge it off of that. They just I feel like it's hatred that they fill their heart in with, and honestly that's not healthy, and this is honestly why the world is going through this struggle right now. I feel like, man, blocking those things are just not healthy for you. I feel like if you'd let them in, you'd actually realize that you're wrong. And many of my friends, and I promise you with this, that I've met that actually allowed me in their life, they've thanked me for what I've taught them, from what I learned from my religion and from my culture. They've actually become wiser. They've some of them, believe it or not, actually converted to become Muslims, and that's what I'm mostly thankful for. I'm thankful for those people that allows those friends to step in their life. I'm thankful for those people that don't just judge someone off of someone else. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's really important. Blocking someone off your life, or blocking a certain culture out of your life just because you're against it for unnecessary reasons, or because of an unhealthy example. I feel like, man, you should not judge that off of this. So just think about what you're thinking for. Think about what you want inside, what you want inside of your life, and just be thankful for what you have. So
yeah, that is very important, and we hope people after watching this interview will be willing to do that, and hopefully we can grow as a society, because at the end of the day, that's what our goal is by having these interviews and talking with different people from different cultures. At the end of the day, we want everybody to embrace everybody so we can become greater as a society, and hopefully that can happen. I'd like to thank you for your time, and this was truly a great interview. I learned so much, even me personally. You have a great story, and I wish you the best in the future.
Appreciate it the most, man. Thank you for having me. And I hope you guys all benefit from this as well. I appreciate you.
Thank you.